Welcome to Emotional Intelligence Simplified. This is a weekly podcast focused on demystifying and discussing what emotional intelligence is. I am Angela Mwehaki, your host, and I am joined today by Vicky Karuga from Profiles International. Karibu, Vicky.
Asante sana.
Have you been?
I've been very well. How have you been?
I am well. So you're keeping well?
I'm keeping very well.
Excellent. So today, of course, we are looking at the issue of self-awareness.
Yes, we've had a lot of discussions around what EI is. I think we also shared some of the stories every day that we've been encountering that shows us what high EI looks like. I can see a sneeze coming
I
up.
know. I caught it just in time.
Okay. Yeah, so today you want to discuss self-awareness.
Yes, because we've talked about awareness. You know, they say there are many elements, but I think self-awareness for me sounds like something we need to first understand. So when I was trying to, get ready for this thing, I did a bit of research and I found something very interesting. And I'm going to share this with you because it really got me thinking. It got my mind, sitting down and asking myself. So it goes like this. It says, part of the problem with the word disabilities is that it immediately suggests an inability to see, hear, walk, or do other things that many of us take for granted. And then it says, but what of people who can't feel?
Yeah.
And I was like, stop, wait, what do you mean?
Yeah. So
people who can't feel, what do you mean you can't feel?
is that a problem?
You can't feel pain, or what is this you can't
As in
feel?
you've been glorifying not feeling.
Yeah.
I don't
So
catch
you say, I don't catch feelings. I'm okay. So
I'm
what
not
are we
all
saying?
about feelings. I'm not emotional.
And then it says, but what of people who can't feel or talk about their feelings?
Very common. Talk about their feelings.
Or manage their feelings in constructive ways. And then the questions don't stop. What of people who aren't able to form close and strong relationships? I was like, wait, disability has taken another meaning. Forget about not seeing or hearing. Where? This is serious. It can hit anybody. Forget now the physical element. And then it goes on and says, and people who cannot find fulfillment in their lives, or those who have lost hope, who live in disappointment and bitterness, and find in life no joy, no love. And then it ends beautifully. It seems to me, are those real disabilities? And it's from a guy called Fred Rogers. And after I thought about it, honestly, disability is not the inability to see or hear. Can you imagine not being able to feel, express your feelings? You find no joy in life? So I was like, wow.
Yeah. When you put it like that, you actually start to see it from a different perspective.
Completely.
Yeah, because you have encountered people who may not have the full use of their feet or their hands, but they're joyful.
Yeah.
They're the guys who give you the most encouragement.
And you're wondering what's wrong with me.
Exactly. They'll give you, this YouTube guy who doesn't have hands, who does everything. He's followed by many
Raja,
for inspiration.
Yes.
And you walk into their space and you just feel heard, you feel loved. And yeah, sometimes you question yourself. What is wrong with me? I have all these things. So could it be that these are the real disabilities? The disabilities that involve being able to feel, to channel our feelings to a constructive manner, to use them and to identify them and to know them and to sit with them. In fact, there's a post I once shared on my LinkedIn that said, identify those feelings that you're feeling uncomfortable with. Yeah. Understand that they're there for a reason. Don't shoot the messenger. They're telling you something.
Right.
Then make an appointment with them at an appointed time. Serve them.
Now, how do I start having appointments? Actually, excuse me, I'm feeling unhappy. Can we have this discussion next week on Tuesday? How do you have a meeting? But so today, that's where we're going. When we talk about self-awareness, it's about our feelings. Can I feel them? Can I express them?
We started our journey on emotional intelligence, as I keep talking about it, and into self-awareness. The first thing is the ability to be able to identify your emotions. So it sounds very
mumbo jumbo,
and
other
not really,
worlds.
what do you mean
you know.
identify our feelings? But like we shared in the last podcast, if feelings drive our decisions, our behavior, then it's actually, again, another very smart thing to be able to identify them and to know what they feel. And more importantly, to know how they will impact your ability. Remember, we talked about the way I show up to you impacts the way that you feel.
How I respond to you.
Exactly. Now, in the same manner, the feelings I have today will definitely impact either how I'm going to engage in a certain task that I'm doing, or how I'm going to take this podcast, how I'm going to talk to you and the listeners. So understanding that as I walk into this store, I'm feeling a certain kind of thing. And for me, it manifests, like, for example, unhappiness or discontent will manifest in my stomach. So I'll catch the stomach thing first and I'll tell myself, okay,
I'm upset.
I'm having some feelings that I am not identifying. And I'll think back and I'll be able to say, okay, actually, today is not a very good time to engage in so-and-so because I'm carrying baggage from last night. Who knows, I argued with so-and-so. And that's possibly going to manifest somewhere in my day. So understanding that, just that component of there are some emotions that might force me to make some decision about some type of engagement in a certain way is actually the first step towards really building self-awareness and how your feelings will impact on you and impact on others.
People tend to say, stop being emotional. Now you're over now telling Miss G, you can't make decisions because G, you're feeling how. Why are you making your life about emotion? So how do we make this so that people stop feeling, I think it's feeling threatened or confused. How do we break it down so that you see the need to, as you're saying, look at yourself in the morning and say, how am I feeling? Today is a day. What am I going to do? Am I feeling anxious? Am I feeling tense? Am I positive? So how do we get to truly get in touch with our feelings without us thinking that it's like a softy, lost way of doing things?
So first is to acknowledge you have feelings. You have feelings. Everyone has feelings. They're natural. We carry them around. So first acknowledge that whether or not we want to consider ourselves logical creatures that are emotionless, we are full of emotions. It's just how we portray those emotions. So that's the first thing. So once you understand and you have feelings, self-awareness is a bit broader than just our feelings, because when we talk about self-awareness, we talk about understanding our moods, our emotions. That's very important. It also talks about understanding our strengths. Also talks about understanding our limitations as well. Also talks about getting constant feedback, because how else do we understand how we are perceived by the world? How are our actions being perceived by the world or by the people that we're interacting with if we don't seek feedback? So being able to ask for feedback on performance, ask for feedback on interaction, ask your child for feedback on, how that situation went with you and them and how they would like you to treat them better. So self-awareness, we cannot just box it into the
But you're raising
of just
a very
emotions.
interesting angle where people are like, apana, if you sit down and wait for what everybody has to say, you'll never do anything.
True.
So feedback also now raises an issue of feedback. If I wait for people's feedback, when will I ever move? You can't please everybody all the time. So just set your course and go ahead.
True.
Because a lot of people are very uneasy on that element of feedback. I don't know if we feel insecure or we feel threatened. I'm not too sure what it is about.
A lot of it has to come with the way that we have been trained to give feedback. And a lot of the times we give feedback when we're not prepared to. You give feedback when someone has made you angry. You give feedback immediately.
So I spark off.
And that feedback can be in two ways. You can spark off. You can also withhold and withdraw and say, I'm not having this conversation.
You ignore. Put a blank here. You just decide this is not happening.
And many other arenas that we give feedback that we don't have... we're not prepared to give that feedback. But the kind of feedback that is constructive sometimes even takes time to plan for it, being intentional. So I know that, yes, I'm doing this thing that needs to move. Doesn't mean that I can't plan for a feedback session at some point, just to see if, like that we do projects and at the end of...
Are we on the same page? When you do the M&E.
Same thing for your personal life. Take breaks, stop, and take feedback into whatever it is that you're trying to change, it holds you accountable as well to whatever process that you're going through. So feedback is one of the ways of getting yourself more self-aware. There's always that thing that people share about Johari's window. There are things other people know about you that you don't know about yourself. There are things that you do, your intended, or your intentions for doing that thing are one thing, and then suddenly you realize
the impact is the
people
opposite.
Are reading it the opposite. So I stand up, I'm forthright, I want to be counted. Self-awareness is also about understanding your personality. So people with a certain personality will come across in a certain way. I'm thinking I'm giving it to you straight. I'm not cutting any corners. I'm not sweetening it. I'm
just giving it to you as it is.
I'm thinking that you're very, very unempathetic.
I might think you're arrogant and full of yourself.
You're full of yourself.
But that's not what you meant. You are simply expressing yourself.
So when we understand that maybe sometimes even our intention is not what is coming through, it gives us the opportunity then to explore how else can we do the same thing that we want to do, give it to people straight, but perhaps maybe change the language, change our tone, change the use of our hands. Instead of those aggressive moments, you can pocket or something. So self-awareness is really like a wholesome way of looking at ourselves, not in the way that we want to be perceived to be, but in the way that we really are. And the more we get feedback, the closer we are to our perceived reality. And I guess we can talk about other people's perceived reality, and we find some center there that's sweet, and we are able to operate from authenticity.
And I remember you saying that leaders who are self-aware can now recognize when their emotions have a negative impact at their workplace or on the people around them.
Yes, exactly. Very essential in leadership. Because remember, in leadership, I keep saying that all the people you're leading are beholden to you. They're looking up to you. You're the one setting the tone, the vision, the direction. So even your moods and emotions have a very, very strong effect on the culture, on the way that people are showing up at work, on the way that they're showing up to problem solving, which is very important in today where everything changes every single minute. The future of work will be involved heavily in creativity, in innovation, in problem solving. So you find you as a leader will either enable that by your moods, your emotions, your demonstration of them, the way that you establish connections and collaboration within your teams.
So now that we're talking about EI, does it mean if I cry, I am self-aware?
Well, everyone has different varying degrees of vulnerability. Let me just put it as vulnerability. Some people are very comfortable, something happens and
it confuses me while me with these waterworks things give me stress.
In fact, let me tell you now, that's a point for you for self-awareness, because one of the questions you have to ask yourself is why am I finding it difficult for myself when someone expresses their emotions in a vulnerable way, especially crying. So that there is a point of information for you. Why am I getting stressed out about it? What about it is not allowing me to really, I want to empathize, but I'm first like, guy.
I know. I remember we were, recently a project we were doing and we were shortlisting students. And we had one lady who walked in and she's those people, she tells you a story, waterworks. You run around, you're looking for tissues. It's a very sad story. You're feeling her. But it's hard to communicate when somebody is just waterworks and crying. You want to empathize, but you also don't know what to do because the answers that have to be given.
Yes, there are
So
answers.
Do we disqualify you? No, you don't think it is right. Then they cry even more.
People who have a highly developed sense of self-awareness will understand what this does to them. It's almost like they have a rehearsed way of responding to these situations, and they know this is going to trigger either I'm going to be wanting to step away from this, or I'm going to be mother hen and try and put my arms around them. Those kind of reactions, and they're all natural to everyone. But then the communication that follows thereafter is very important. Am I going to still communicate effectively enough to this person about what needs to happen? Exactly. Without making them feel like what they just did was irrelevant, but at the same time not
also making it
to get away.
Exactly.
Yeah. So these are all expansive things you have to consider. And yes, some people do rehearse it. And we see these things being rehearsed all the time about cops are being given scripts in difficult situations, what to say, because your body naturally will force you to react in a certain way. But if you have a structured way of following it, it allows you to almost always give an answer that is neither favored nor discriminatory.
But you're able to steer them back. Because I remember I was like, okay, fine. I brought the tissues, relax. Yeah. Do you need a minute?
Yeah, and I think some of the men in this town say that
they panicked. It was a panel.
It catches them off guard in terms of the workplaces. And I think it has been a problem. Some of the times when you have forums, they say, how do you handle a woman who comes to your office crying? Yeah, real life problems. How do you handle a woman who comes to your office crying? I really don't have an answer to that.
I think first ask them, do they care to share? If not, at least give them tissues, offer a glass of water. Sometimes it's silence.
Yes, but you will not know how to handle that.
You won't know who is who until you have gone through it. It's true.
Yeah. So some of the things we talk about when you're developing your self-awareness is actually exercising your emotional system. So putting yourself in situations that you find difficult so that you experience them and they become almost normal to you so that you're able to respond to them more effectively.
You are listening to Emotional Intelligence Simplified. So like when we talk about crying, so it's like how maybe we can say some people who have to do things like that is like you gave a very good example, policemen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or even
there's
trauma.
A conflict in the house. Maybe there's violence or something. There's a fight. They have to be able to be calm and not take sides and handle people. Or maybe there's been something
or
like an
doctor.
accident.
Imagine you walk in there and he starts crying with you. He tell you, oh, things are all these things are things that maybe other professionals have learned and they teach on them, but even you as a person can actually learn, how do I become more effective? But it first comes from understanding how your response is to those situations, which are the difficult situations for you. How do you equip yourself? And I keep saying there's so much that you can read. You can teach yourself through reading. You can teach yourself through talking with others, sharing knowledge. You can get mentors, you can get coaches. One of the things that signifies a deep sense awareness of emotions is being able not only to name them, but to differentiate them. You don't just have like 3 vocabularies. I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm happy. Expanding that vocabulary is growing an emotional awareness and being able to then know that, okay, I am angry, but this is the kind of anger I have, or this is the other kind of anger I haven't. That's why things like the emotions wheel, which you can find off the internet anywhere, are there. And what it does, I have found, and this is just a quick tip for anyone who's looking to grow their emotional awareness, is that when you have these wheels, these emotional wheels around you, you can pick an emotion like, say, today I'm feeling inadequate. Yes. Or around this person, I feel inadequate all the time. And what those emotional wheels do is that they allow you to trace it back to the base emotion, which you might find is fear. So you're either afraid of this person,
yes,
and allows you to really deeply introspect into what is my relationship with this person?
Why do I have this feeling?
And the conversations might then be able to change to have a meaningful or better relationship with that person.
So like, how can you be a good parent and practice self-awareness? Because, first of all, kids are kids. Kila mtu na emotions. Today I'm having a bad day. I'm crying, nagging, harassing. You're having your own way, but you have to deal with this child having, I don't like, you don't like me. Nobody understands me.
Again, I think that's how we become better with each and every single child, because the first child just opens another world and you're like, oh my goodness. So how do I react to this? How do I do this? But with the second and the third, we are practicing.
You're laughing. No, the first one is guinea pig.
Yeah, so now you're learning. And then by the third, for those who have 3, 4 children, they always say, the third and the fourth, they just brought themselves up. But the thing is, I think you are more tolerant. Some of these things weren't fuzzing you as much. And it's a process. So becoming a better parent, a better wife, a better father, a better co-worker, again, is about self-improvement. Your own need or want or intention of self-improvement.
So now let's talk about accurate self-assessment. Can you really be honest with yourself?
And that's why I said feedback. Because I think we see around us a lot of times a demonstration of lack of self-awareness. And I'm not saying that there's totality in lack of self-awareness, because you could be not self-aware about something, but self-aware in something else. So it's about developing the wholesomeness of self-awareness. Someone who tells you the statement of me, I'm a very calm person. Me, very calm.
But even though you're talking, you don't sound
and already you're looking.
Even the face is everything is just saying, dare you.
I'm like, okay, yeah, that's maybe a new definition of calm. One of the things I also find demonstrated in self-awareness, and this is in no way meant to talk about, people's preferences, is also sometimes in the way that we dress. Yeah, and we're not aware of our body types. And I think people who study fashion and all that will talk about it. We're not really deeply aware of the way we come across sometimes when we put on some things.
What do you mean? We're not? I know my size. I know mine is not a small size.
When I was very young, I know, yeah. But when I was very young, the thing that dictated what I wore was what was in. It wasn't the fact of who I was. So you see, I did not have an awareness of who I was, what I wanted to represent. There are very deep things to think about. All I cared about was me.
It's fashionable to wear jeans.
It didn't matter whether jeans. It didn't fit. It didn't agree with my body type. It was too hot, too cold. I think that's where the phrase freeze and shine
comes from.
But overall, as we grow in self-awareness, then we also start to understand, okay, the way that I am putting myself together is impacting the way that other people are also regarding me. And so sometimes I find that we might be dressing for others, we're dressing for fashion, we're dressing to fit in,
dressing to impress,
without first being looking at ourselves and being fully aware of who we are, what looks good on us, what accentuates what we have, what presents us in a manner that we want.
How different is that from a fashion sense?
Well, it's not. In fact, I think that's one of the things that all guys in fashion teach you when you're going for a makeover. They ask you some things about your values. What do you value? Who do you want to be? They're asking you questions about yourself. They're making you first aware about yourself. They're asking you to define yourself, to think about the things that stand out or the things that you regard about yourself. That is a journey. And I remember one time talking to one of these ladies who's a consultant in terms of brand image and appearance. And she said, it doesn't take 2 days to change your appearance. It takes a year or more, because it's a constant, it's a constant, reflection, thinking.
You are listening to Emotional Intelligence Simplified. Because I know the blunder sometimes we make is like you're a lot of sizes smaller than me. So I look at a dress and I think, wow, this looks good on Vicky. And I go tell someone, I want like that. Not considering that, yeah.
And the same thing, I might decide that I'm looking at a dress because it's really voluptuous on another woman. And when I put it, I'm like, why is it not getting the same effect? Yeah. So without that but they are very, very basic examples.
A beginning
of self-awareness. Sometimes also I remember, and I'm going to share this incident because it happened the other day and I was just like, oh my goodness, I remember doing this. I'm on the road and I was driving and I was trying to drive across the road, and this woman decided to cross. Mm-hmm. So of course I brake, but then she decides to cross with all her splendor.
Oh, like a peacock, taking her time slowly. No, me I call it making sure they can see you so that they don't hit you. Don't run across the road.
And by that I do remember doing that. So and I started laughing and I thought to myself,
the zebra crossing became her catwalk.
Yes, which is okay, but I kept thinking that why did I want to do that when I was so much younger? Or why would she want to do that? And I realized it does again go back to reflection of being aware. I was not aware at that time of the dangers of actually doing that. Imagine if you walked in front of a madman, and he decided to go with you. your body is wrecked. Doesn't matter how many court cases you will holler.
If you're gone, you're gone.
Doesn't matter how many people pay you, but your body is gone. And then the second thing is that you're trying to send a statement to someone. Why are you trying to send that statement in that way to that person?
And you don't even know them.
So it speaks
what's your anger?
Again back to your self-awareness. Is there something that is not validated in you at that particular point that you feel you have to validate yourself in certain instances? And so that shows up at the zebra crossing.
or you'll see that with our public transport people, the matatus. Yeah. There's a way they'll come and drive and cross over and then they're saying, these guys of my car. Personal, the transport versus individual personal cars, and it's like a fight and you can't understand why.
Yeah. So basic interpretations of self-awareness, but you'll keep doing that until one day you realize, if you have that conversation deeply with yourself, is that guy with my car is just a driver like you.
So where are we getting upset?
Yeah, so
or the guys who continuously hoot about everything and nothing.
Different opinions. And what is the impact it's having on me? I'm getting stressed. It's ruining my day because the minute I walk into the next conversation, I'm just talking about matatus and how bad matatus are. So the impact it's having on my work is maybe not the desired impact that I wanted to have. So again, just basic examples, non-judgmental, just putting it out there and for discussion's sake.
Okay. So now, how do you get to know that you are actually self-aware?
I think intentionally thinking about developing your self-awareness in itself is like a big thing. Okay. Because it means that you then allow yourself the space to introspect, to reflect, to see how you're playing out, actually, is the word I would use. So if you find you're stopping every once in a while to reflect on something you did, whenever we do one of our courses, someone always writes up and tells me, by the way, I caught myself doing this and this and the other, and I realized it wasn't necessary at that point.
Courses, what courses are we talking about?
I mean, so we run emotional intelligence courses for various reasons, either for leadership, for management, for general collaboration, connection.
So we're just letting our listeners know that if you do want to explore these areas and you get in touch with Profiles International, there are courses available for you to start understanding some of these things that we're talking about.
Thank you, Angela. So when we run those, one of the things you start hearing people say is they catch themselves. Yeah, they start interrogating what are some of the choices that they're making. They start spending a bit more time being mindful about understanding what their moods are, what their emotions may be, what other people's moods are, how they may have been responsible for them. I know it sounds like you might be sitting in a space where the only thing you're doing is reflective, but that's not it. It's more about developing a bit more mindful living as you progress. And being mindful is possibly the first step towards developing self-awareness. Because you'll get information from everywhere, from a lot of things. Some of it you'll act on now, some of it you'll act on years later, some of it you possibly will never act on because it's just a natural part of you, but you begin to really deeply understand yourself.
And I think I know what you're saying, because even coming today, I think at one point, you know how you sit and you're driving and you're trying to be calm, some 3 guy comes and goes right across. And first thing was rage. Then I asked myself, you get angry and then you're going to get flustered. This guy doesn't even know you. He's just thinking of getting to where he's going in a hurry. And I just told myself, breathe in. And I calmed down. And I get what you're saying. And it's not being mindful. It's just slowly start understanding yourself. And I'm like, hey, this was me like 3-4 weeks ago. I'd have followed him up to tell him where and hoot at him. And it doesn't do anything. But you're like, okay, it's him, it's his business, let's move on.
Yeah, and some of these problems are solved by systems. They're solved by policy. They might never be solved by you. So maybe the best thing you can do is actually join a forum that is part of solving this systemic problem that we're having.
Okay.
Yeah. Just food for thought, I guess.
Food for thought, I guess. So some of the things we're saying now is identifying these things is when you start having, I think, is that what you call a robust emotional vocabulary?
You find that other guys who develop self-awareness, another way of doing it is being aware of your gifts as well as your strengths. So you might be in a situation, and especially, someone put a phrase out there, entrepreneurship is a journey of anxiety. And I agree.
It is, because you don't know where you're going. You don't know structures. Like you said, sometimes systems are not there.
Exactly. But if you think about it, you understand the emotion anxiety and what it does for you. It puts you on a path of just seeing what could go wrong. So,
instead of what could go right.
Right. So again, self-awareness.
Or what you can create.
Understand what the good things that are happening in your life, not in any greater magnitude or lesser magnitude that they actually are. It allows you to appreciate the growth, allows you to really ground yourself back to what the realities are, and they're not so bleak. So that practice of gratitude, again, in reflection, is a very good way of also allowing yourself to put yourself in situations that are not seeming like, the world is ending, of despair. Yeah.
Okay, so those are the elements. So we're still we're exploring self-awareness. And of course, you are listening to Emotional Intelligence Simplified. This is Angela Mwihaki, and of course, I have Vicky Karuga with me. And we're trying to understand this issue of self-awareness. So how self-aware are you? Can you identify when you're feeling irritated? Can you put the different words to what you're feeling? That bubbly stomach, bad tummy feeling. What can you identify it as? Have you ever sat down and thought about it? And this feedback thing, have you ever gotten feedback? Do you think about getting feedback? How do we get feedback?
Very many ways. Ask and thou shalt receive. But then, of course, there's the other element of teaching people how to give constructive feedback.
Hey, first of all, now I have to teach you again.
Yes.
I think also I'd start with observation. See how people react when you're talking. Body language tells you a lot. There are people who will suddenly roll their eyes or cross their arms and kind of like lean back. Just know, not a good place. Others, if you're really engaging and are excited, they will lean forward. You'll see people nodding along with you as you speak. So you need to become more, sorry for using it, but I have no choice, self-aware.
And we're right back.
Yeah, we're right back to it, because how else would you gauge whether people are responding or not? Are they smiling with you? Are they nodding? Are they, when you say something and they say no, you can see somebody in the head going, So are we communicating? At least that way you're engaging. Then now Vicky will tell us how we're going to train on getting feedback.
Great. Thanks for the session, Angela. I think it's been rather insightful on self-awareness, and I believe that the next topic that we shall be discussing is still on awareness, but on awareness of others.
So please, if you have any thoughts or comments, do share them on our platforms that we have provided, and we are looking forward to hearing from you. And of course, this is Emotional Intelligence Simplified. We're looking forward to seeing you on our next podcast. You are listening to Emotional Intelligence Simplified. If you want to get in touch with us, you can do so on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We are Profiles International. If you want to get more information on the programs we run or what we do, write to us at info@profiles.co.ke. You can also WhatsApp us or call us on 0722 45 7777. You can also contact Angela Mwihaki at Mwihaki Thinking Out Loud on Twitter and on Facebook at Angela Mwihaki.